tarde, galera. Boa tarde, todo o time da Campus Party. A gente está na primeira edição do Fórum Fintech e a gente também está na primeira edição da Campus Party Digital 2020. É um prazer estar voltando aqui com vocês. A gente está aqui num momento bastante empolgante dos meios de pagamento. A gente está num momento bastante empolgante desse evento. A gente está tendo esse espaço. Peço sua audiência, peço que compartilhem, porque o sucesso desse Fórum Fintech vai trazer novos Fóruns Fintech em todas as edições. E a gente está aqui para estimular você que é desenvolvedor, você que é analista de dados, você que é cientista, você que é empreendedor, a entrar para o mundo das fintechs, a entrar para o mundo dos meios de pagamento. E quero me apresentar, eu sou o Linconl Rocha, eu sou o presidente da Rede Seller e também estou aqui como curador do Fórum Fintech 2020. Tá bom? Hoje a gente vai estar aqui com vocês, a gente vai apresentar uma empresa magnífica. Hoje aqui é uma apresentação internacional. Eu chamo aqui a Valéria Carrete, que é a nossa diretora de negócios internacionais e parcerias estratégicas.
Olá, pessoal, tudo bem? Prazer grande estar aqui com vocês. Temos um lindo painel à frente.
E quero chamar também aqui o Cleveland Brown. Ele é fundador e CEO da Payscout. Hi, Cleveland.
Hello.
Enjoy this moment with us. Let me introduce you for the guys in Portuguese, okay?
Sure.
Pessoal, Cleveland, ele começou no mercado financeiro nos anos 90, mas a partir do final dos anos 90 ele já entrou para o mundo de pagamentos, criando o gateway de pagamentos, criando solução de pagamento para o meio educacional. E em 2008, ele criou a Payscout, e a Payscout começou como um gateway de pagamentos. A Payscout, ela hoje é uma empresa que atua em mais de 100 países, ela tem mais de 1 bilhão de clientes transacionando através da rede dela, ela transaciona mais de $1 trilhão na rede dela, e ela tem mostrado para o mundo e mostrado para as empresas do ramo de pagamento como é que se faz transação entre pessoas de qualquer país, de qualquer nacionalidade, de qualquer região. Então, eles criaram uma conexão multimoeda, multipaíses, atendendo às regulações, e eles são muito experts nessa área. Além disso, o Cleveland pessoalmente atua junto ao governo americano, junto à Electronic Transaction Association. Ele trabalha como vice-presidente do Comitê de Meios de Pagamento americano. E a Payscout foi considerada 3 anos consecutivos uma das melhores empresas dos Estados Unidos, uma das maiores empresas com crescimento nos Estados Unidos. Também em 2017 ela ficou em 17º lugar na lista das principais culturas empresariais e de empresas de médio porte. Além disso, além de tudo isso, meio de pagamento, mundo financeiro, mundo bancário, a gente tem aqui uma mente também ligada às artes, que ele também é produtor de filme, ele é produtor da Entix Film, e ele colabora, além de ter feito vários longa e curta-metragem, escrever, produzir, ele também colabora para o surgimento das transações através de realidade virtual. Então, tudo isso aqui a gente vai aproveitar, peço que vocês coloquem suas perguntas, venham com a gente, se for fora dessa transmissão ao vivo, pode mandar um e-mail também para inovação@redeseller.com.br. Peço aqui para o pessoal colocar aqui embaixo, inovação@redeseller.com.br, como também pode entrar nas redes do LinkedIn, da Payscout, e falar direto aí com o Cleveland Brown. E eu tenho uma novidade para vocês. Eu tenho uma grande novidade, um grande anúncio, e eu quero agradecer o Cleveland, quero agradecer o Manpreet. A gente conseguiu, esse ano, falar e assinar um contrato de parceria. Então, a Payscout no Brasil está se aliando à Rede Seller, a Rede Seller está representando a Payscout no Brasil, e a gente aqui vai acelerar esse modelo de meios de pagamentos online, internacionais, globais, aqui no Brasil. Então, você quiser falar, conhecer mais, por favor, mande um e-mail para a gente. Hi, Cleveland. Good to see you, man.
Hello, Lincoln. Good to see you as well.
Please.
I wish we were in person, obviously. I was really looking forward to spending time with you and just everyone in regards to the campus party event. But, you know, we're doing it virtual, so here we go.
Okay, congratulations. Thank you. I appreciate this moment with you guys. Please tell to Campus Party your history and the Payscout history, please.
Sure. First, I can share maybe a few slides as well, if that helps, or I can talk through it. But Payscout, we're a global payment processing platform. We connect businesses to consumers through credit, debit, check, alternative payments, global networks, obviously throughout the world with partners like Seller, Visa, MasterCard, UnionPay, Cielo, large global fintech partners such as Alibaba, and we're able to support payments across the globe. And, you know, fundamentally, Payscout and payments, we make fintech possible. And how we make that possible, it's through making payments in a secure and frictionless way across multiple consumer types, as well as multiple merchant types. And I can get a little bit into Payscout here and share. Let me try to share my screen. And I'll make this quick so we can get into questions, obviously. So let's give me just a moment to present. Okay. And if I share my screen, see if this works. If it doesn't work, I'll walk through it. It wouldn't let me, it's not letting me share here, Lincoln. Let's try this. Yeah, I'm not sharing here. Okay, so let me just kind of walk through it here. You can still hear me? Lincoln? Hello?
Gabriel, okay. We have a problem with Valéria. Valéria got disconnected. Okay, but let's go on with the adoption of virtual transaction was boosted at this time of pandemic. So problem in the world. But the retail virtualization was a mandatory form of survival, where traditional payment company prepared to convert this demand in products, in technology, or infrastructure. What do you think about this?
So you're Lincoln. Are you asking about? Can you repeat that again from a pandemic perspective? Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Because in pandemic time,
Right.
We have the moment, the exploded moment for virtual relation and payments and buying, selling, and companies that I think company wasn't prepared in the infrastructure and products and in technology. What do you think?
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? So when you talk about timing, and I always reference, you know, the history of payments, and I've always envisioned payments more. It's not commerce, but it's more organic. What I call organic commerce, and payments, from our perspective, it's the connective tissue that allow people of all cultures, ages, religions to really build economic and social networks throughout the world. And if you think about this throughout time, if you look at different moments in history, whether we go back to Roman trade and the use of the Roman abacus, the Silk Road in Asia, the Maya exchange systems, the Amsterdam Dutch cashiers, you know, what's happening with Visa and MasterCard introducing plastic cards, global e-commerce, and all of these like powerful mechanisms that have helped civilizations thrive. And what they've done, if they've provided a frictionless way for us to conduct business, to socialize and build economic relationships during these particular times. So now we find ourselves again in this moment in history where there is a significant change and impact to how payments are accepted. So what are we doing? Everything that I talked about earlier is evolving the customer journey. And that's all we're doing is we're looking at the customer journey and we're evolving it. So what does that mean now? That means everything we do in person obviously can't happen the way it used to because of the social distancing requirements of a global pandemic and a virus. However, the evolution, as we know, are contactless payments. It's e-commerce, it's m-commerce, it's voice commerce. And what I really would like to kind of key on as an answer to the pandemic is social commerce and how that is evolving. So if we talk a little bit about social commerce, and for people that maybe aren't familiar with that term, it's the buying and selling that take place on social media networks. So because of the pandemic we're in, social media networks are obviously becoming a very important hub to transact. And social commerce encompasses global, local marketplaces, large businesses selling products to millions of social media followers, to individual buyers and sellers hoping to leverage their local networks as well. And there's so many activities that happen in social commerce and it's a version of e-commerce, right? It's omni-channel. We can get into omni-channel after, but it's about learning about a product through direct messages to sellers and making some type of mobile payment, which is kind of what you're alluding to, via these social apps, via technology. And I think we all know examples of social commerce and the evolution of this during the pandemic. You know, now we're using chat boxes to inquire about products and services, even more so. We're using groups and forums for buying and selling items. Electronic payments are happening within social networks. We're seeing pins from Pinterest. You see Google Shopping under YouTube videos, coupon codes on Instagram. So there's so many areas that are, as I said, evolving that really allow two main things to happen. One, if you can't do things in person, how do you engage with your consumer throughout the buyer's journey? Well, you have to be able to interact during every step of the buying process. So that's from increasing brand awareness, promoting products, paid ads, accepting payments via different types of technology apps where people are ready to buy. In addition to that, taking advantage of buying and selling features, right? There's so many features that apps have a very convenient way to allow users to learn about features for products and goods and how those features relate to them. And when I say relate, that is summarized through creating a personalized shopping experience. So what the pandemic is doing is it's now forcing brands to customize products, use e-commerce, and I focused on social commerce, mobile commerce, and voice commerce to evolve this customer journey. And now we see these new channels and a lot of basic creativity going into servicing consumers during these challenging times.
Yes, nice. I agree, my friend. Please, Valéria, come back.
Yeah, unfortunately, I faced some kind of technical problem. Sorry, but I'm back. Cleveland, I'm just introducing the market and the challenge in 2 minutes, something that we have already discussed, and then we are back with you. Just a minute, because I believe that not everybody is fully involved and has a full vision of how hot means of payment is nowadays, right? It's the hottest and sexiest industry. Right. Okay, so give me just 2 minutes in Portuguese, okay?
Yep.
Pessoal, o que a gente está aqui vendo, né? Um mercado em ebulição, né? O mercado de meios de pagamento e pagamentos instantâneos está em completa ebulição, não só no Brasil ou no mundo, né? A China vem desenvolvendo novos modelos muito rapidamente e está se apropriando dessa visão de inovação. Só para vocês terem uma ideia, na China hoje, a penetração de mobile payments já é 86% de todas as transações. E desses 86%, 94% é feito pela plataforma do Alipay e do WeChat, né? Então, é uma grande penetração. Esse ano a gente teve Facebook fazendo uso dos 2,4 bilhões de usuários, tentando lançar uma criptomoeda chamada Libra. Teve que voltar atrás, mas é um movimento. O Brasil entrando efetivamente no mundo dos pagamentos instantâneos, através também do Facebook, lançando o WhatsApp Pay. Também teve que voltar para trás devido ao Banco Central, mas isso é uma questão de tempo. Temos o Pix, que também é uma plataforma de pagamentos instantâneos do Banco Central do Brasil, prometido para novembro. Ou seja, não faltam novos formatos de inovação para acelerar a transformação desse mercado tão sexy hoje, que é meio de pagamento e pagamentos instantâneos, né? O Brasil está entrando definitivamente no estágio onde os pagamentos digitais são relevantes, ou melhor, predominantes, né? Se você olhar, as pesquisas antes do Covid mostravam que os canais digitais no varejo brasileiro iriam crescer este ano 18% somente. Isso levaria o total quanto significa o canal digital dentro do total de billings do varejo para 18%, de 4,5%, ele ia para 5, entre 5 e 5,5%. Isso daria com que a gente chegasse aos patamares hoje dos Estados Unidos de maturidade somente em 2019, na maturidade atual dos Estados Unidos. Agora, no pós-Covid, todas essas pesquisas e essas projeções foram feitas, e nós chegamos à conclusão que o mercado vai crescer de 50% a 75%. É uma loucura durante os 2 ou 3 próximos anos. Isso vai fazer que, ao invés da gente alcançar a maturidade de hoje em dia dos Estados Unidos em 2019, nós vamos alcançar em 2015. Vamos estar acelerando quase 5 anos essa diferença, né? Então, hoje, com o Cleveland aqui, nós vamos ter uma visão um pouco mais profunda do que ele vê nesse momento, nessa ebulição, nas tendências para o Brasil e para o mundo, no novo papel desses atores no meio de pagamento e no empoderamento do omniconsumidor, né? O que é esse empoderamento desse omniconsumidor que hoje tem um smartphone na mão, né? E que pode fazer tudo o que ele quiser pelo smartphone na mão, e smartphone esse que está pegando o protagonismo de que hoje está nas maquininhas de cartão de crédito, o celular tomando esse papel. Então, para vocês verem que isso é um mundo em evolução, um mundo em construção, e essa é a beleza desse segmento. Cada dia estamos construindo o seu futuro. Cleveland, I have just went through China, Brazil, the new challenge, the post-pandemic environment and the growth that we are going to have in the digital channels, in the total billing volumes of the retail, right? And that will reach these channels will grow 50 to 75% year over year for the next 3 years. So we are going to reach the actual, let's say, maturity or penetration of the digital channels that today Estados Unidos, the United States has into 2015 in 5 years. So with this, I start with you with a question. With this radical change in the Brazilian market, in the digitalization of the Brazilian market due to the pandemic impact. What do you believe are the main challenges for the fintechs or the companies that are related to means of payment in order to support this growth?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, we have a simple phrase, a simple answer, but complicated in regards to how you support it. So we have what we call the 3 C's, Valeria, and those are conversions, compliance, and cost. So as we look at the explosion of the digital channel, we have to take each of those elements, those 3 C's, and apply those elements in an effective and efficient way to create a frictionless payment environment, because that's ultimately what we want to do. So if I walk through conversions, the first point of conversions is that what merchants want, they want more customers, right? So you have to be able to bring more customers into your environment and convert them. How do we convert more customers? Well, we need to make sure in each unique environment that we have the right types of payment methods, and converting those payment methods sometimes into the digital channel, things like the boleto in Brazil. And when we do that, we have to increase authorizations, right? So we have to make sure that these payment channels, digital payment channels, are open, and we're able to convert more customers through increasing authorizations. And there's multiple ways to do that, and I can give examples. But what's extremely critical, as we both know, recurring payments. So in order to be successful in that digital channel, we have to be able to handle recurring payments in a frictionless way, in a secure way. Things like card account updaters, tokenization, and there's different tokenization services that we've integrated with, including Visa, MasterCard, and we're seeing tokenization evolve from local payment gateways and these local networks that they're now going and moving through to the card brands, and the card brands working with the issuers are now managing tokenization so that we can have more conversions in the ecosystem, because we're not dealing with a customer that has 100 different tokens over the digital channel. We can leverage one token through all of the digital channels to make conversions happen easier. So that's the first C, and I can stop there if you have any questions, or I can go through the other 2 as well.
I believe that it's fantastic. Please go ahead, because I think that everything will get connected at the end, right?
Yep, correct.
Yep.
And it's interesting, because the second piece of that is compliance, and you brought it up, when you were speaking earlier, is that we saw Facebook and Lincoln, I think Lincoln brought up Facebook come into the picture there in Brazil, and what happened from a compliance perspective with PIX and the Central Banking Authority is that compliance is really critical when you're trying to innovate. And innovation isn't just building cool gadgets and cool software. Innovation is being responsible. Innovation is being compliant. And that comes into kind of 3 areas. One is PCI, and if you don't know, if a lot of people don't know what PCI scope reduction is, that's just the handling of customer information over payment channels and making sure that it's being secured. That's one layer. The second layer is PPI, and PPI is very similar, but that's now we're talking about the personal information that's collected in these particular payment and app environments. The third piece that's a huge challenge is reputational risk. And really, you know, payments, as we know, it's such a fragile environment when we talk about fintech, financial technology, because if you're not managing your reputation and the consumer loses confidence in our ability, in sellers' ability to secure transactions, then they are just not going to feel confident going into those environments. So regulatory factors, I believe, are going to bring banks closer to fintech. There's been kind of this division of innovation, and that innovation has skipped the regulatory environment. And I think the opportunities are really taking those regulatory infrastructures of banks, leveraging their participation with technology companies and investment, and then from a compliance standpoint, really being able to build out models that we can all globally be confident in. And that leads to the third piece of this, because none of this matters without the last C, which is cost. At the end of the day, if the transaction is too expensive, ultimately for the consumer or the merchant, then it's not going to obviously be a channel that people will be dependent on or utilize. So we have to look at, from a cost standpoint, and this is in Brazil, how are we going to advance that narrative of the digital channel? Well, you have to have optimization. You have to optimize at every single touch point of a transaction flow, making sure that we're optimizing the cost of that transaction. And there's different ways to do it. From a high level, there's interchange optimization, meaning being able to look at how you reduce the risk of a transaction as it flows through the ecosystem. How do we reduce that risk? Well, what we do is we bolt on more relevant data, and that could be from your mobile phone, your computer, whatever it may be, to that transaction, so that the merchant has confidence that you are who you say you are when that transaction is actually happening. So we have to figure out very innovative ways to take data and bolt data, more data onto transactions in a frictionless way. And unfortunately, one of the things that we're seeing are fee-free models. And it's unfortunate for the consumer to some extent, because the cost of the transaction does go up for the consumer. However, if you're building a digital channel that has both conversions and compliance, then these, what we call fee-free models, where the consumers are paying for the convenience, we're going to see more of that, more of those types of models moving forward, I believe, in the digital channel. And what does that lie in? It lies in the creativity. It's going to be the millennial generation, Gen X, Gen Z. It's all of the young people out there. As we talk about how Valéria, as you talk about how sexy this is, it is, because the technology is going to evolve with those generations, and it's up to us to make sure that we can execute on the 3 C's to make it happen. No,
perfect. Yeah, I believe that our role here is just to enchant these youngers to jump in the industry and help us to build this future. That's our challenge here. Yeah. Cleveland, we have 2 questions that have been sent to us through the week, right? Once we announced that we are going to be with us. So I will ask people to just bring to the screen. After pandemic, will this new demand for virtual transactions be reduced and return to the old standard? Or will it remain in people's behavior as the new normal? Is there a way back or not?
So it's definitely, it's not going to go back to the old standard. And it will remain in people's behavior, because and the reason for that is that we're already here, meaning the digital channel isn't born out of the pandemic. The digital channel, I believe, is just evolving faster because of the pandemic. So what it's going to do is it's taking a lot of, and this is different generationally, and I'm talking, doesn't matter the age group, it's forcing people to look at the digital channel where, as you talked about old behavior, they didn't look at it. They didn't really pay attention to it. Now that they're paying attention to it, what they're finding, we talked about the 3 C's, they're finding this is convenient. This is, and I like the conversions, and I'm confident and I'm comfortable in this environment. So the demand is only going to accelerate because now people are seeing the advantages that, Valeria, me and you have been talking about these advantages probably for the last 10 years, trying to move everyone forward. And now I think they're forced and they're enjoying it. I really believe the feedback that we're getting, and I think why we're seeing these digital channels and we're seeing these numbers just literally skyrocket is because this is the new normal. This is how a lot of people should have been doing business in the past, and how they're going to conduct business in the future. So that's what I believe is the answer to that question. I guess the one piece that I could add to that is technology, right? So especially if we talk about, globally, we have a shift from 4G to 5G, right? Technology, and we're having faster connections and bandwidth and compression technologies that more and more people are getting access to. And I think this is also accelerating the use of these networks and the optimization of these networks to continue to deliver in an efficient way through the digital channels.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I believe that the pandemic just the future gets faster, right? We reach there faster. It's an evolution and not an adaptation to a circumstance. When you adapt, sometimes you go back. When you evolve, you just go into another stage. That's what I see. We see it the same way. Here we have another question, please. We are in the age of knowledge, and this brings and consuming non-tangible products is borderless. What are the gaps and what are the cross-border financial relationships for the growth of international commerce now? Because the beauty is you can sell to the whole world. The hell is you can sell to the whole world. The beauty and the beast relies in the same body. What's your vision?
So this is an interesting question, and it's not easy. So where we start with consuming non-tangible products, right? And I would even include tangible products. I think the barriers, we're breaking those barriers down across the board. And there are a lot of gaps, and it's easier with non-tangible products because we do not have the logistics fundamentally of moving a product around the world. However, the logistics of making payments frictionless is very difficult. So what's the biggest gap? So you have a merchant in Brazil that wants to sell to a consumer in China. Let's use that as an example. So one of the biggest gaps that we have are the payment methods, right? Really understanding how different cultures, different regulatory bodies have different payment methods that consumers utilize to conduct transactions. So one of the biggest gaps is building a central hub that can manage the payment methods required to successfully manage the first C, which I talked about, conversions. So I'll always go back to the 3 C's. It will answer pretty much any question that will present itself. So in order to convert in that environment, you have to close the gap for payment methods. Now, that's not as easy as it sounds. So let's reverse that example. Let's say now we have a consumer. Well, let me finish on that example. So let me talk about the gap. So the gap is UnionPay, right? So if you have a Brazilian merchant that wants to sell to a Chinese consumer, Chinese consumers utilize the largest card brand in the world, which a lot of people don't know. They're bigger than Visa and MasterCard, American Express combined. And you have to be able to tap into that payment method, which is challenging because there are only a few companies in the world that can manage that type of transaction, that UnionPay transaction. Payscout happens to be a principal global acquirer of UnionPay, and we're one of very few. And it took a long time to be able to put that payment method in place. So now with Seller, now that we're working together, we're able to now open that up for the Brazilian merchant to conduct transactions. This gap that we talk about of payment methods, we're able to close that particular gap. And if I reverse the role, similar gap in Brazil. As you know, the Brazilian cardholder can't simply make a transaction to a digital transaction to let's say a Chinese a merchant or a US merchant, right? There's certain limitations on how those transactions flow out of Brazil. So we have to close that gap once again. How do we allow Brazilian consumers safely conduct business for non-tangible goods across borders that meet the requirements of the regulatory bodies that exist, the central banking authorities, as well as the security required to make sure that that consumer is safe.
I see. I believe that our partnership will surely help the market to expand in this direction, both ways, right? From outside to Brazilian merchants and the other side. You know, Brazilian guys love to buy things in China, in the States, and love Airbnb, and we make transactions all over the world. So I believe that make them easier and safer will bring us a huge value for the Brazilian market, for sure. Let me ask you another question, Cleveland. Okay, you talk about compliance, you talk about the roles of the banks as regulators of this market, but don't you think that the mobile payments and instant payments will bring these actors, you know, the banking system, into a non-comfortable zone, right? Because who is pushing the innovation are not the guys who used to. Right? What's your vision about that? The discomfort of the banking system with other guys driving innovation much faster than they even think about.
Yeah. So, you know, I touched a little bit on this earlier when we started. So it is uncomfortable for, I believe, the financial institutions to see all of this innovation happen. And the reason for that, it's actually, people tend to want to blame the banks for falling behind from an innovative standpoint. But what people don't understand is the lens that, the regulatory lens that a bank has to go through. So there's a regulatory filter that doesn't allow innovation really to flow through it the same way it allows a non-regulatory body to innovate. The non-regulatory, whether it's the Facebooks or the Sellers, the Payscouts, we originally look at innovation, it flows very easily. The banks, everything gets stopped from a regulatory standpoint. First thing regulators are looking to do is say no. It's unfortunate, but they're not looking. They look for something. Their job.
The first answer is always no.
Exactly.
Yeah, the first one is natural.
So and then to get a regulator comfortable with innovation, it's not an easy journey. So what does that mean? That means now we've seen this innovation flying, and this innovation is now, I believe, what we're seeing encroaching on the financial institutions, and they are becoming uncomfortable because they still, even though they want to innovate, they still can't innovate with the regulatory lens that's sitting in front of them. So what we're seeing right now is some encroachment on banking products that are further from the regulatory scrutiny, and you see those kind of falling into the fintech sector. So let's take installments type of payments for goods and services. We're seeing that move over to fintech because it's not as heavily regulated as other areas of banking. However, we know as innovators, we don't stop. So the innovators are encroaching on banking, but now what's happening? The innovators are hitting the regulators. That's exactly what happened with Facebook, right? One of the biggest innovators in the world is they are now coming into the crosshairs of the regulators. And same thing when they try to launch Libra, in the crosshairs of the regulators. So I would say the banks are uncomfortable, but now we're starting to see the fintechs become uncomfortable. And we're seeing now this partnership between the banks and fintech in a way where before it was just simply rejected. And you know what I really believe? I think this is a tremendous opportunity for the smaller banks. I think we're going to see a real surge from smaller financial institutions that are a bit more nimble, partnering with these fintech companies and really encroaching on the market share of the larger banks. That's what I would say. That's my observation. That's what I see in the future. I think we're going to see more diluted market share, but it's going to still, you're not getting rid of the banks, and you're not getting rid of the regulators. So we're going to see these fintechs come in, and I think we're going to see a synergy over the next decade or so that are really going to kind of bring banking back into the innovation umbrella.
Yeah, perfect. And looking to your the energy and the happiness when you show when you talk about innovation, that leads me to the following question. Lincoln mentioned that Payscout's recognized by its corporate culture, right? And looking to the energy and happiness and joy when you talk about innovation, tell us a little bit more about Payscout corporate culture.
Sure. And this goes along with, it's really, we talk about financial services. And when we started Payscout, the one thing that we wanted to do is to differentiate ourselves, right? And one of the ways to do that is the reputation of financial services. And I don't care where you're at in the globe, usually the reputation isn't very good. There's a lot of mistrust that happens, and we wanted to change that. And the only way we could change that is through example. So what we did is we put together really a culture that, and when I had to think about the culture, building a corporate culture, there's different ways to approach it. And I've had the opportunity to travel the globe. I've worked with prime ministers in different countries all over, ministers of finance, all the way through banking sectors. And in order to be a global company, we had to build a global corporate culture. And we have employees and partnerships throughout the globe. And I felt it was really important to build a universal corporate culture. And what I mean by that is it's a common language, a common corporate language that we all use, so that it doesn't matter what culture you live in what environment that you live in, whether you're in Brazil, US, China, Australia, Europe, that we have a universal corporate culture in terms of how we behave. And that all started with our vision. And everyone knows our vision within Payscout. And that's to become the thought leading and fastest growing global payment processing provider in the world. And the key there in that corporate culture is thought leadership, right? Really being thought leaders, being the resource that people come to when they're thinking about certain areas of payments. And I tell this to young people all the time as they come in to our ecosystem. And we have such a great factory of bringing university students into our corporate culture. And I tell them, it doesn't matter what area you're working within Payscout. What I will tell you is there's one simple thing that I want from you. And you're already going to be an expert in what you do, because our young people are fabulous, right? As we bring them in. But I want them to go above and beyond and work with us to become the resource to their peers. And if we can help young people become a resource to their peers, then that vision of thought leadership and fast growth for Payscout and for those contributors, those individuals, it's realized. And we do that through our mission. And our mission is to support the entrepreneurial dream one transaction at a time. And that is a universal thought, being an entrepreneur. Everyone thinks about what is it to be an entrepreneur. And we get we're so lucky, Valeria, we get to support all of these people with all these fantastic ideas and make them a reality, and they can be compensated for it. And the person on the other side gets that good or service delivered to them. So that mission, that every transaction is important, and being an entrepreneur is important, and ideas are important, and bringing those ideas to life. That's how we achieve our vision, and we do this through our cultural attributes. And everyone knows our cultural attributes within Payscout. And those cultural attributes, ultimately, when we talk about corporate culture, and I think why I'm so enthusiastic, really is that I'm inspired at the end of the day. So we have a belief that's built into our culture that every individual has a social responsibility to make the world a better place. This is something that we believe. We do it at Payscout. Every individual participates because that brings meaning to what we do every day. And in order for me to be successful, I have to create great decision makers, right? That's really my job as a CEO and leader of an organization. And decisions, as we all know, have multiple paths. So we go into an environment, you could have 2 options, you can have 10 options, you can have 100 options. Your experience is going to ultimately is going to break those options down, and you need to decide a path. What we do is we rely on our culture to then make that ultimate decision, and you are completely supported no matter the outcome. That's what makes a great company culture, is knowing that I have the ability to make a decision, and as long as I can integrate my company culture ultimately into my experience, then no matter what happens, everyone supports me. I'm supported through the organization, and I'm inspired to make decisions. So our people inspire me every day. I try to inspire them by telling their stories, because they're all fabulous. I'm inspired by our partnership with Seller. I believe it's really going to take that vision that we talked about and accelerate that thought leadership and fast growth. So that's the Payscout culture, and I appreciate you asking. And all the young people out there, as you're thinking about what you're going to do, who am I going to work for, where are you going to bring your knowledge, think about the cultural environment that you're going to work in, do your homework, investigate, so that you can become the best version of yourself.
No, perfect. I got inspired, and I think that all the audience, you are so inspiring. So the energy you pass when you transmit, when you talk about it, is fantastic. Thank you for sharing. It's an honor. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, Cleveland. So I invited you to make your final remarks, but also just tell 2 or 3 words about your vision of our partnership. What do you think we can do and build together?
Yes, so it's right in line with the Payscout vision. And it is to now collectively, Seller and Payscout, to become the thought leading and fastest growing global payment processing provider in the world. That is the vision. And we're going to achieve that vision because we have recognized we have cultural alignment, and we have cultural alignment to be able to achieve that vision together. And the way we're going to get there is with people, with bringing in bright, fabulous minds. And collectively, that vision is going to become a reality by all of the people, all the participants that are hopefully watching, and if they haven't, can see this. But regardless, we're going to build an infrastructure that are going to allow young people to thrive and be creative, so we can execute that vision effectively. And that's what I see in our future.
Lincoln, do you want to make any final comments? Because we really have to leave. So Lincoln, please.
You're on mute, Lincoln.
Just to regard you and Manpreet, thanks a lot for everything. Thanks a lot for this partnership. I appreciate a lot, and we share this vision with you. Okay, this vision will be the same and the same time together. Okay. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing your experience. Thank you for having the time to be with us. Hope we meet you here in Brazil soon, if the pandemic allows, very soon. Okay, take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Pessoal, muito obrigado. E todos os campuseiros que estão aqui conosco, vai na página da Payscout, vai lá no LinkedIn da Payscout e também vai lá mande um e-mail para mim, inovação@redeseller.com.br. Muito obrigado pela sua audiência, muito obrigado, Cleveland, muito obrigado, Payscout, muito obrigado, Campus Party. Um abraço a todos. Tchau, tchau.